There was a lot of scary things that happened. A lot of scary things that was so overwhelming and very terrifying. A lot of things that happened all because of betrayal from one family member. Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Dare to Speak. I'm pretty much going to tell more on things that I've already opened up on. When I started my video that was entitled, I Was Molested by My Grandmother. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I would strongly advise that you do see it in order to understand more on this particular video. I was molested, I was molested and there was other perpetrators involved in it. A lot of the things were very hard for me to deal with when I was growing up, but then I pretty much managed to, overcome it. And the thing is, the mental programming of how someone could get you to believe that it's your fault. That post-hypnotic suggestion, the mind control that they actually do. That's what's one of the things that this particular Masonic cult that my grandmother was a member of, involved with at a very heavy level. My grandparents, basically. My grandfather was the worst. Out of everybody, he was actually a lot worse. And the thing about it is, I'm already over it pretty much, but growing up, it was really difficult for me to handle a lot of the sexual perversion that happened, a lot of the sexual abuse. Now, the reason why this is considered different compared to other people that's been molested, that has nothing to do with cults or satanic ritual abuse or anything like that, is they remember. And, they're told not to tell and stuff like that. But when they hypnotize you to cover up your memory, and if you do remember certain things, they program you into believing that it's your fault. To me, that is 10 times worse because it involves witchcraft. It involves mind control. So if you want to tell somebody, you're unable to tell somebody believing that it's your fault. So you have to pretty much understand how that works, how that kind of thing works to begin with. Now, when it comes to the more severe and scary things, and weird things of that nature, like I remember when with this cult, there is a certain there's a certain type of ceremonial, um what you would call, something that they have you do for whatever reason, whatever their motive is, or whatever, depending on what how they do it and what they do. There's rituals in which the little boy will perform oral sex on each and every one of the members, both male and female. After he finishes with one, they move him on to the next one, and it's male, female, and so on. My uncle told me that he was forced to do that, and to make sure that he enjoyed it. It's because that's another thing too. They don't just they don't just make you, they don't necessarily force you and you're crying, you don't want to do it. What they do is they hypnotize you. That's completely different from the regular type of typical molestation, when a child is reluctantly done, reluctantly forced to do it. When when they're in reluctance, when they're forced to do it and they're crying as they're doing it, that's completely different. That's something that you can't really put in the same category. In this, they hypnotize you, and as you're doing it, you're getting a sexual arousal, and then you move on to the next person, the female, and then you're performing kungalingus, you know, which is what my grandmother did, and many times I did it. And that's how they get you to feel guilty, because you get a sexual arousal from it. Now, my uncle told me that he was doing it from man to woman, and then he gets a sexual arousal, and then there was also at times when, in certain ceremonies, certain rituals, would they also involve animals and that kind of thing. And I learned about this, and I used to talk to certain people that I trusted about that, and trying to figure out more and more about it as to why they did it and this and that. Because I was a teenager, 17, 18 years old, when when I got to a point where I said to myself, I have to know more about this. Something tells me that I need to investigate. So I did for many years. And I didn't get that much information throughout my 20s, but I did get it until it started building up. And when I got into my 30s, that's when I started to know a lot more, a whole lot more. And in the recent years, I learned a whole lot more after that. The mind programming is very, very powerful. It's post-traumatic suggestion, and it's easier for them to get away with it. My uncle also told me about the certain creatures that were there. There was some kind of a ceremonial thing where they all chanted, and they said their kind of, their incantation of whatever, some sort. And he said he saw the ground open up and these creatures came out. This different, various horrifying creatures. And then there was a great deal of negative energy around them. And there was something that freaked me out when I first heard about it, where he said at one point that he saw, at times, it didn't happen, it wasn't a lot, but once in a great while he noticed that there were rich people around, powerful people, whatever, according to him. He never mentioned names. But he also said about maybe 2 or 3 times that he could remember that he saw high-ranking members of the military, of the U.S. military, whenever these creatures were around. Only during those times, and these particular creatures that were invoked, summoned, and stuff like that. And back then, I was wondering, what the fuck does the U.S. military have to do with creatures that were summoned, that came out from the ground, and a large horde of them, whatever these bogarts, boggies, hobgoblins, those type of creatures you hear about in folklore. And I mean, aliens is one thing that I already know. I mean, everybody pretty much knows that. And of course, there was that too. But there was also what is it about these other ones though? Why is there a connection with these two? That didn't make sense to me. Now, when I was in my early 20s, I was saying that, and then he told me about a particular house where they did all these kind of really messed up and creepy things. And I remember flashes of them. And there was also snuff films in which kids were actually not only raped and sodomized, but killed in ritual by members of these people as well as these creatures. And there was images of military people there. It was filmed, like those cameras that they used back then. There was photographs. They actually made snuff films. Now, he remembers how there was certain places where they actually went as far as to sell them to only certain people. They would sell them for a great deal of money. Now, it was hard for me to try to really understand the significance of it when I was in my early 20s to my mid 20s, especially during those years. It was really hard for me to understand, but it took many years to, even up to this very day, to understand it completely. And I do understand it completely. The images that I've seen in flashbacks that I experienced, because I actually experienced only once of this particular house in which a lot of these things were happening, and the creatures that were there were fucking horrifying. And there was some of them I recognized them right away. I knew them because I seen them before, because I was a victim of these fucking things. I recognized them, and not only did I recognize them, I knew who they are, what they are, where they come from. I knew. I wasn't told. I knew. I automatically knew. And they're not demons, and I'm going to let you know again, even though it's the same scenario about the whole thing about demons. They are not demons. They are biological creatures. Flesh and blood. They could be shot. They could be stabbed and killed, whatever, that kind of thing. But of course, they're very fast and strong. So and I already explained to you why, and this kind of thing. But they're not demons. The thing is, like I said before, I knew exactly who they are and how these creatures came into being, how they existed in the first place. And in order for me to explain that, which is going to take a while, for any of you who wants me to, I'm not going to talk about it unless you guys want to know, because it's a very, very touchy subject. I think it's a very touchy subject, so I don't know, but it is going to take a while to explain, so I'm not going to get into that right now. But the whole thing was very strange and very horrifying. And I'm just going to pretty much stop it right there. So again, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, you know what to do. And this is Dare to Speak. And to all of you, take care.